The Galactic Union chamber was full of voices echoing across the wide hall. Delegates of many alien races had gathered after hearing news of a new fleet that had entered the Outer Rim. At first, no one paid much attention. Fleets often passed by, traders came and went, and sometimes strange explorers wandered too far. But this time was different. Reports said the fleet did not belong to any known empire. It was small, very small compared to the great fleets of the Union. That was why most of the chamber was filled with laughter. One delegate, with shining green scales, stood up and waved a hand. He spoke with humor in his tone. "This small fleet dares to travel near our borders? Perhaps they are lost children." The hall erupted with amusement. Others joined, mocking the idea that such a tiny force could ever matter. Their fleets numbered in the thousands, with ships as large as cities. Against that, what could a handful of strange ships do? But at the far side of the chamber, one voice did not laugh. A tall alien, skin like gray stone and eyes filled with memory, watched the screen that showed the fleet's movements. He had seen wars long before most of the others were born. His name was not spoken loudly anymore, for he had retired from command, but his wisdom still carried weight. He leaned forward and spoke slowly. "You all laugh, but do you know who they are?" The chamber quieted for a moment. He pressed a button and the screen lit up with data. The name of the species appeared: humans. The laughter returned, louder than before. Almost every delegate had heard of Earth, the world far out on the rim. To the Union, it was a planet of reckless dreamers. They had explored, yes, but they were new to the stars. Many saw them as too bold for their own good, building ships and trying to join the larger stage before they were ready. Stories of human explorers were told like jokes at gatherings. "They send a small fleet because that is all they have." One alien sneered. "Let them play at war." The gray veteran did not smile. He stared at the screen, at the way the human ships moved together. Their numbers were few, but their paths were sharp and precise, like hunters circling prey. "Do not be so sure," he said quietly. "Humans do not come without reason. They do not send ships without purpose." In another corner of the galaxy, far from the Union chamber, the small fleet traveled through the dark sea of stars. At the front was a single flagship, sleek and strong. On its bridge stood Captain Laura Bennett, a woman of calm eyes and steady voice. She looked at the display before her, watching the stars drift as her fleet pressed forward. Around her, officers worked with quiet focus. "Report," she said. A young officer with short hair looked up. "All ships are holding formation, Captain. Engines are stable. No Union ships in direct range yet." Laura nodded. She knew the Union was already laughing at them. She had read the messages they had intercepted, filled with mocking words. They believed Earth's fleet was weak, unworthy of notice. But Laura also knew something they did not. Her fleet was small because it did not need to be large. Every ship carried weapons and systems built to adapt and change, to strike where the enemy did not expect. Humanity had always fought against greater odds, and this time would be no different. On the second ship, Commander Ethan Carter walked among his crew. He was a man who carried a smile even in tense moments. His soldiers looked up to him not only for his skill but for his faith in them. He stopped near a young pilot who was checking the controls. "Are you ready?" Ethan asked. The pilot nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. We're ready for whatever comes." Ethan placed a hand on the pilot's shoulder. "Remember this. They think we are weak. That is their mistake. We only need one chance to show them who we are." Meanwhile, on the flagship, Officer Megan Lewis studied the patterns of Union fleets. She was young but sharp, her mind quick with detail. She saw how the Union ships often spread wide, slow to adjust because they trusted their numbers. They were like giants who believed no one could challenge them. She made notes and passed them to Captain Bennett. Laura read them and smiled slightly. "Good work, Megan. You see what they do not. Size does not win battles. Discipline and courage do." Back in the Union chamber, the debate continued. Some delegates joked about capturing the human ships and putting them on display. Others argued that ignoring them would be best. Why waste resources on such a small matter? Yet the gray veteran's warning lingered in the air. His words carried a weight that none could fully dismiss. He leaned back in his chair and whispered to himself, though a few nearby heard him. "You laugh now, but you do not know the history of these humans. You do not know how they fought each other on their own world for thousands of years. Every war taught them something. Every loss taught them to stand again. You may not respect them now, but soon you will remember my words. The humans, unaware of the exact words spoken in the chamber, pressed forward on their path. Captain Bennett stood with her crew, their eyes fixed on the stars ahead. They were not here to beg for respect. They were here to earn it. The galaxy would learn who humans were, and the laughter of the Union would not last forever. The human fleet moved forward through the silent stretch of space, each ship holding its line with discipline. The stars around them seemed endless, and the dark void ahead carried both mystery and danger. Captain Laura Bennett stood calmly on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes steady as she watched the displays. Her crew worked quietly, but everyone felt the tension building. The Union was watching them now, and they all knew the Union would not stay silent forever. "Captain," Officer Megan Lewis said as she studied her console, "we have new scans from the outer rim. Union scouts are shadowing us. They are keeping their distance, but they are watching closely." Laura nodded. "Let them watch. They expect us to fear their presence. Instead, we continue as planned." Commander Ethan Carter's voice came over the comm line from the second ship. "Captain, my unit is steady. Morale is strong, but the crew wants to know what happens if the Union sends more than scouts." Laura pressed the comm switch and spoke clearly. "Then we show them why we came. We are not here to start a war, but we will not turn away. Every ship in this fleet is ready to defend itself. Tell your people this, Ethan. One small fleet can carry the spirit of an entire world." Her words spread through the fleet, carried on secure channels. Pilots, engineers, and soldiers all listened and felt the weight of her calm voice. They knew the truth. Earth had sent them not only as a fleet, but as a symbol. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. Now they would prove themselves. On the second ship, Ethan turned to his crew with a grin. "You heard the captain. They may have numbers, but we have something stronger. We fight because we must. We fight because we carry home with us." His words drew nods and faint smiles from the crew. They tightened their belts and returned to their duties with new resolve. Back in the Union chamber, the reports from the scouts arrived. Screens showed the human ships moving together, not scattered like lost children, but organized and sharp. The Union delegates muttered among themselves. Some still laughed, saying the humans were only trying to look strong. Others began to feel a faint edge of unease. The gray veteran who had warned them earlier now leaned forward once more. "Do you see it?" he asked, pointing at the display. "Their ships move as one. Their numbers may be small, but they waste no movement. Every path is chosen with care. This is not a fleet wandering blindly. This is a fleet with purpose." The scaled delegate who had mocked them earlier hissed in irritation. "So what? Purpose means nothing against power. We could crush them with a single wing of ships." The veteran looked at him, his stone-like eyes calm. "Perhaps, but do not mistake their size for weakness. The galaxy has seen great empires fall to smaller forces before, and humans, I warn you again, are not like others." On the human flagship, Megan Lewis continued her study of the Union's patterns. She leaned closer to her screen, noting how the Union fleets often reacted slowly to change. Their vast numbers made them confident, but also slow to adjust. She highlighted weak points in their strategies and passed her notes to Captain Bennett. Laura read them carefully and gave a small, approving nod. "Good work, Megan. Keep studying. We will need every insight when the Union finally decides to act." Hours passed, and the silence of space was broken only by the hum of engines. Then at last the Union made their move. A transmission came across all channels, the voice of a Union commander filled with arrogance. "Unknown fleet, you are trespassing in Union space. You will turn back at once or be destroyed. Your small numbers cannot stand against us. Leave now or we will make an example of you." The words echoed across the bridge. Some of the younger crew members shifted uneasily, but Laura stood tall. She pressed the comm switch and answered with calm strength. "This is Captain Laura Bennett of the human fleet. We are not trespassers. We are explorers and we travel with purpose. We will not turn back. We do not seek war, but if you strike us, we will defend ourselves." The Union commander's voice came again, mocking and sharp. "Brave words for such a fragile force. Very well. You will learn your place." The transmission ended. On the human ships, the crews prepared for what was to come. Alarms rang softly, systems powered up, and weapons were armed. Ethan Carter stood at the front of his bridge, watching the stars as Union ships appeared on the edge of their sensors. He turned to his crew. "This is it. They think they will scare us. But remember, fear is their tool, not ours. We hold the line." Soon the Union squadron came into view. Massive ships glowing with energy, weapons bristling across their hulls. They dwarfed the human fleet in size. The Union commanders expected the humans to panic, to retreat, or to surrender. But instead, the small human fleet tightened formation and moved forward with perfect control. On the flagship, Laura gave her first order. Do not waste fire. Target their engines. Make them see our precision. The battle began. Union ships unleashed powerful blasts, filling space with light. The human fleet moved like dancers, slipping through openings, turning the vast void into their shield. They struck back with sharp bursts, hitting exactly where it mattered. One Union ship faltered, engines disabled. Another found its weapons silenced by a focused strike. In minutes, the mighty squadron was struggling against a force they had mocked only hours before. On the bridge of the flagship, Megan Lewis's voice rang out. Direct hit, Captain. Their formation is breaking. Laura's eyes narrowed. Hold steady. Show them we are not prey. Ethan Carter's ship swept past another Union vessel, disabling its main cannon with a single precise strike. He leaned forward and muttered to himself, Now they know. Now they see who we are. Back in the Union chamber, the delegates watched the live feed in stunned silence. The laughter that had once filled the hall was gone. On the screens before them, the small human fleet was holding against a squadron that should have crushed them easily. The gray veteran folded his hands and spoke softly, his voice carrying across the chamber. I warned you. You cannot measure humans by numbers alone. They carry with them something you cannot see, an unyielding spirit. The scaled delegate stared at the screen with disbelief. This cannot be. They are too few. This is impossible, but it was not impossible. It was happening, and the galaxy was watching. The humans pressed on, their ships shining with defiance in the endless dark. And though the battle was not yet over, one truth had already been born in the minds of the Union. The small fleet was not to be laughed at. It was to be feared. The Union squadron that had been sent to confront the humans limped back, damaged and broken. The news spread quickly through the Union chambers. What was meant to be a quick show of power had turned into a display of human skill and precision. The delegates argued with each other, their voices loud and bitter. Some demanded that the humans be crushed immediately with a larger force, while others called for patience, saying the humans had only been lucky. Yet no one could ignore the truth. A small fleet had done what no one thought possible. In the center of the chamber, the gray-skinned veteran watched with heavy eyes. He did not raise his voice like the others. He simply whispered to himself, This is only the beginning. Far away, the human fleet drifted in quiet formation after the battle. The stars were calm again, though every crew member knew the storm was far from over. On the flagship, Captain Laura Bennett stood on the bridge listening as her officers reported the damage. Minor hull scratches, Captain, one officer said. Shields held. Engines are stable. Laura gave a small nod. Good, and the others? Commander Carter's ship reports a damaged wing panel, but it has already been repaired. No casualties across the fleet. For a moment, silence filled the bridge. The crew looked at their captain with quiet pride. They had faced ships that should have overwhelmed them, yet they had come out strong. Laura looked at them one by one, her calm voice steady. You all did well. But remember, the Union will not stop here. They will return with more. We must be ready. On the second ship, Commander Ethan Carter was walking the decks. The crew greeted him with smiles and relief. They had fought bravely and their spirits were high. But Ethan did not let them grow careless. He stopped near a group of young soldiers. You fought well, he said. But don't think the Union will make the same mistake twice. Next time, they will come harder and stronger. We must be sharper than ever. The soldiers nodded, understanding his warning. One of them, a young pilot, asked, Sir, do you think the Union fears us now? Ethan smiled faintly. Fear, not yet. But they no longer laugh. That is the first step. On the flagship, Officer Megan Lewis was deep in study again. She sat at her console, reviewing the battle data. She traced every movement, every strike, and every response. Her sharp mind pieced together how the Union had fought and how they might fight next. She approached Captain Bennett with her findings. Captain, I believe they will send larger fleets soon. They will rely on overwhelming numbers, but their size is also their weakness. Large formations take time to move. They cannot react quickly to small, sudden changes. Laura listened carefully, so we use their size against them. We strike where they cannot turn fast enough. Megan nodded. Yes, Captain. If we keep moving, keep changing, they will struggle to pin us down. Hours later, another Union transmission arrived. The voice was cold and proud. Human fleet, your actions are seen as defiance against the Union. We will respond with the strength you lack. You cannot stand against us. Surrender now or be erased from the stars. Captain Bennett stood tall as the voice faded. She did not hesitate. Send a reply. Tell them this: humanity does not surrender. We came to prove our place among the stars, and we will not turn back. The message was sent, and the human fleet pressed forward. They knew the Union would come again, and soon. In the Union chamber, the scaled delegate slammed his clawed hand against the table. Enough of this game. Send a full fleet. Crush them before they spread their arrogance further. Another delegate shook his head. If we send too much force, we risk giving them respect they do not deserve. We should send more ships, yes, but not our full strength. This will end quickly. The gray veteran finally rose to his feet. His voice was low but filled with warning. You speak of ending quickly. That is your mistake. You still do not understand who they are. You think they are like others, weak when outnumbered. But humans are different. They adapt. They learn. The harder you strike them, the stronger they become. Remember this before it is too late. His words were met with silence. Many dismissed him, but deep inside some began to feel unease. They had all seen the footage of the first battle. It was not luck. It was something else. The Union sent another squadron, larger than the first. Dozens of ships moved out, shining with power. They expected to surround the humans and finish them. But the humans did not wait. Captain Bennett ordered her fleet into motion. They moved like shadows, fast and unpredictable. Their smaller numbers allowed them to slip between the gaps of the Union formation. Ethan Carter's ship struck first, disabling a Union cruiser's engines before darting away. Megan Lewis directed fire with precision, guiding the gunners to hit weak points. Union ships fired back in heavy volleys, but they found only empty space where the humans had been seconds before. The battle stretched across the stars. The Union pressed harder, but the humans always moved faster. They fought not with brute force, but with intelligence, turning the vast size of the Union fleet into a disadvantage. Bit by bit, Union ships faltered and confusion spread through their ranks. On the flagship, Laura's voice was calm but firm. Stay together. Do not waste a shot. Every strike must count. Her crew followed with perfect discipline. Each blast hit with purpose, each maneuver designed to break the enemy's rhythm. Hours later, when the Union finally withdrew, the humans remained standing. Their fleet was still small, but its spirit was unbroken. Back in the Union chamber, the silence was heavier than before. The laughter was gone. Fear had begun to creep into the edges of their minds. The gray veteran looked at them all and said, Now you see, the small fleet belongs to humans, and that means your war will not be as easy as you thought. The humans knew the Union would not stop. More battles lay ahead, but on every ship, from the flagship to the smallest vessel, the crew felt the same fire burning inside. They had been mocked and underestimated, but now the galaxy was beginning to learn the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not to be ignored. And the small fleet, though few in number, carried with it the strength of an entire world. The galaxy was beginning to whisper about the humans. News of the battle spread faster than the Union wanted. Traders, spies, and travelers carried the stories from one system to another. They spoke of a small fleet that should have been crushed, but instead stood against the Union and fought with skill that no one expected. Some dismissed the tales as rumors. Others began to wonder if they were true. And in the Union chamber, the delegates argued more fiercely than ever. We cannot allow this to continue, one alien said, his voice sharp. If we let them win again, other species will believe the Union is weak. We must gather a grand fleet and destroy them completely. Another shook her head. If we bring too much force, we risk showing fear. The humans are nothing. They are insects. Why waste our strength on them? The gray-skinned veteran listened in silence. His hands rested on the table, his eyes fixed on the screen that showed the human fleet. Finally, he spoke. You call them insects, yet they have struck you twice. You say they are weak, yet they fight as if they have trained for this war their whole lives. You think numbers will save you. I tell you numbers will not. They will use your pride against you. But few listened. The Union believed in power, and power to them meant size. They prepared a fleet larger than any that had faced the humans before. Hundreds of ships moved together, their weapons bright and ready. They believed this would end the matter once and for all. Far away on the human flagship, Captain Laura Bennett stood before her crew. They had all heard the reports. Scouts had detected the new Union armada. It was massive, stretching across space like a wall of steel and fire. Some of the younger officers felt fear in their hearts, but they did not speak it aloud. They looked at their captain, waiting for her words. Laura's voice was calm, steady, like the stars themselves. They are coming with more ships than before. They believe they will break us with size. But remember this, Earth has always faced greater enemies. We survived storms, wars, and disasters. We survived because we never stopped fighting. Today will be no different. Our fleet is small, but our will is strong. And that will is what they cannot match. The crew nodded, their fear replaced with determination. Officer Megan Lewis spoke up. Captain, if we use their size against them, we can still win. They cannot move quickly. If we stay fast and strike at their weak points, they will fall into their own traps. Laura smiled faintly. Yes, Megan, that is exactly what we will do. On the second ship, Commander Ethan Carter walked the bridge. He watched his crew prepare for battle, their faces hard with focus. He raised his voice so all could hear. They think this is the end. But for us, it is another beginning. We carry Earth with us. We carry the strength of every man and woman who ever stood against impossible odds. Do not fear their numbers. Remember who we are. The battle came swiftly. The Union fleet appeared on the horizon of stars, filling space with glowing lights. They advanced like a tidal wave, confident in their might. The human fleet moved to meet them, their small numbers hidden against the vast dark. Then, with sudden precision, the humans struck. Ethan Carter's ship darted forward, firing at the engines of a Union cruiser before vanishing into the black. Megan Lewis guided the flagship's guns to target the weak joints in the enemy's shields. Blasts of light cut through the void, and another Union ship faltered. The larger fleet fired back with furious strength, but their shots struck only empty space as the humans weaved through the chaos. On the Union command ship, their leader shouted in frustration. Why can we not pin them down? They are too few. Surround them and finish this! But the humans were not easy prey. They used speed, cunning, and perfect teamwork. While the Union tried to close the net, the humans slipped through, striking again and again at the points that mattered most. Engines went dark, weapons shut down, and massive ships drifted powerless in space. Captain Bennett stood firm on the bridge, her eyes sharp. Stay together. Do not break formation. Remember, every strike must count. Hours passed, and still the humans fought. Though they were small, their spirit did not fade. One by one, Union ships fell into confusion. Their great fleet, meant to crush, was now a storm breaking against a rock that refused to move. In the Union chamber, the delegates watched the battle unfold in silence. Their laughter was gone, replaced by disbelief and fear. The gray veteran finally spoke, his voice echoing across the hall. Do you see now? This is not luck. This is who they are. Humans will not bow. They will not break. And if you keep pushing them, they will rise higher than you can imagine. The scale delegate who once mocked them now stared at the screen, his pride shattered. This cannot be. We are the Union. We cannot lose to such a small fleet. But the truth was clear. They were losing. The humans, though few, carried a fire that the Union did not understand. They fought not for conquest, but for survival and respect. That was why they would not fall. On the flagship, Megan Lewis leaned forward, her eyes bright with focus. Captain, their formation is breaking. They cannot hold much longer. Laura's voice was calm. Keep pressing. Show them that every move we make has meaning. Let them remember this battle. Commander Ethan Carter's ship cut through the lines again, striking a battleship's power core and leaving it adrift. He spoke to his crew with pride. You see? They thought they were giants. But giants fall when their legs are cut. Finally, the Union ships began to retreat. Their mighty fleet, which had begun with confidence, now scattered in disorder. The humans held their place, steady and proud. Their fleet was still small, but it had survived another storm. Back in the chamber, silence filled the hall. The gray veteran looked at them all. Now the galaxy knows. The small fleet belongs to humans. And that means the age of laughter is over. The age of respect has begun. The humans did not celebrate loudly. On their ships, the crews sat in quiet pride, knowing more battles would come. But in their hearts, they carried the strength of victory. They had been mocked and doubted, yet they had proven themselves. And with every battle, the galaxy was learning a truth it could no longer deny. Humanity was not weak, and the small fleet was far greater than it seemed. The galaxy had started to change its view of humans. Stories of the small fleet spread across star systems, whispered by traders, spies, and travelers. They spoke of courage, precision, and strategy that defied expectations. Many doubted at first, thinking it impossible. But the evidence was clear. Humans, with their small fleet, had stood against the powerful Union and had won. Captain Laura Bennett watched the stars from the bridge of her flagship. The fleet was in motion again, moving through space with quiet confidence. They had survived battles that should have destroyed them, yet they were ready for what came next. She looked at her officers and saw determination in their faces. Fear was gone. Now only resolve remained. "Captain," Megan Lewis said, "scans show more Union ships moving toward our position. They are sending everything they have." Laura nodded. "Good, let them come. We are ready. Remind the fleet to stay calm, precise, and coordinated." On the second ship, Commander Ethan Carter walked among his crew. Soldiers and pilots were checking their equipment, preparing for the next engagement. Ethan spoke with confidence. "They think overwhelming force will win. But they forget one thing: humans adapt. We learn from every encounter. We will fight smarter, faster, and stronger." The Union fleet loomed on the sensors, a vast wave of ships stretching as far as the eye could see. They moved with confidence, believing that size and firepower alone would crush the humans. But they had already learned their first mistake. Humans were not ordinary opponents. The battle began as the Union fleet advanced, firing massive energy beams and deploying squadrons to surround the human fleet. The humans moved like shadows through the chaos, slipping between attacks and striking with deadly accuracy. Megan Lewis directed the flagship's weapons, each shot hitting exactly where it would count. Ethan Carter's ship targeted engines and weapons of the Union fleet, taking down several massive ships in moments. Captain Bennett spoke calmly to the fleet over secure channels. "Focus on their weak points. Move with precision. Do not waste energy on what is already defeated. Let them chase us if they must, but always control the fight." The Union commanders shouted orders, frustrated by the humans' ability to dodge and strike. No matter how many ships they sent forward, the humans found openings. They struck swiftly, disabling weapons, engines, and shields of Union ships. Confusion spread among the enemy ranks, as their size became a disadvantage rather than an advantage. Hours passed in a tense dance of light and energy. The humans, though few, moved with a unity and intelligence that the Union could not counter. Every maneuver was deliberate, every strike measured. Captain Bennett watched her crew, proud of their focus and skill. They were showing the galaxy the true power of human determination. On one of the smaller ships, a young pilot named Alex Carter, no relation to Ethan, maneuvered through a field of fire, disabling 2 Union ships in a daring strike. His crew cheered over comms, but he kept his focus sharp. "We move fast. We strike precise. That's how we survive," he said. Commander Ethan Carter smiled as he heard the report. "Good, keep up the pressure. Never stop moving. The Union will make mistakes and we will exploit them." The Union fleet began to break apart. Ships drifted without engines, weapons silenced, and formations crumbled. Their arrogance and reliance on numbers had been their undoing. They had underestimated the humans, and the cost was heavy. The galaxy was witnessing a small fleet of humans achieving what was once thought impossible. Back in the Union chamber, silence reigned. The delegates who had laughed now watched in disbelief as the news of the battle reached them. The gray-skinned veteran looked around the room. "Do you understand now?" he asked quietly. "This is the difference. Humans fight not just with ships, but with spirit. You cannot crush them with size alone. They are resilient, intelligent, and relentless. You may still have power, but never forget, humans adapt and they will rise to meet every challenge." The scaled delegate who had mocked them earlier clenched his fists. Impossible. How can so few stand against so many? But it was no longer impossible. It was reality. The small human fleet had survived the largest attack yet. They had proven their strength and changed the perception of their species forever. Captain Bennett addressed her fleet once more. "Today we have shown that size does not matter. Spirit, courage, and unity do. We fight for Earth, for humanity, and for respect in the galaxy. Remember this. Tomorrow the Union may return, but we will be ready. We will continue to prove that humanity will not bow to fear or arrogance." Megan Lewis looked at the screens and nodded. "Captain, the Union will not forget this. They now know that humans are not weak, that a small fleet can change the course of a war. Laura Bennett smiled. Then let them learn. Let the galaxy learn. We are humans and we will always rise. Ethan Carter's voice came over comms. To every ship and crew member. Your courage today has earned the respect of the stars. The Union laughed, but now they understand. Humans fight with more than numbers. We fight with heart, with skill, and with will. Remember that. The galaxy is watching and we will not disappoint. The human fleet moved on, small but powerful, carrying the pride and determination of their entire species. They had been mocked, doubted, and laughed at. But through strategy, unity, and courage, they had turned fear into respect. The Union would never see humans the same way again. The small fleet had become a symbol of something much greater, the strength of a species that would rise against any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. Humanity had proven itself, and the galaxy would never forget it.